in 2022, you released the album 3034, and it was released towards the end of a global pandemic. I felt a lot of the lyrics were a reflection of how you viewed society through your lens at the time, and you've actually sort of self-described the album and the creation of the album as that. Um, that was a pretty intense time. I think we can all sort of agree with that, and I'm not sure how much of
Yeah.
your observations of what was going around you at that time were the inspirations that made their way into the album. But I guess the question is, now that we're sort of a few years after that album release and after this whole thing, how has your view of society changed since then?
My view on society, well, most bar one song, all of those songs were written before the pandemic started.
Gotcha.
So in my mind, I was writing something about something I felt was on the cusp of happening. And then it happened. And then I was like, okay, now I've written a lot of this stuff that feels exactly like what it actually is. And how do I tell that story without, you know, reliving them, trying to make people relive the moment too much because could have been a very traumatic time. So I definitely say that. What was the other part of the question that you said?
The other part of the question is, has your view of society changed since then, since the creation of that work?
My view on society has stayed the same. I feel like yeah, it's exactly the same. It may have been that we feel that we're in a much more lighter space compared to how things were around the COVID times. And I always believed in humanity that we can do great things together, and not and the worst when we're against each other. And that was the same principle that I've always applied. So me creating that album again was just me trying to reflect what I felt was around me and laying down a benchmark for what was happening socially around that time. Because sometimes we need pieces of art to represent the time so we can look back on it. And hopefully that album's a piece that people eventually, look back on.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, in the song Answers,
Yeah.
one line stuck out to me, and I was wondering what the significance of it was.
Yeah.
And the line is ayahuasca crushed up with aspirin.
Yeah.
What is the significance of that?
So the significance of that line is that the aspirin plays the role of something that is being made in a lab. And then the ayahuasca is the same drug aspect, but is something that is natural. And when you put those two things together, it's almost like the way that we're living right now. We're living in a very AI controlled situation, but we're still trying to hang on to our natural essences. So by putting the ayahuasca and the aspirin together, when you crush that all up together, how we're living right now is what you see.
Gotcha. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that because I really love that line. But
Yeah.
and I have uh, sort of my own take on what it means to myself. But then when you explain it from sort of your lens, yeah, I really like that. It's really cool.
And that's what I think is great that about art is that music, but whoever's standpoint is, or whoever you think it is to you, what it means to you is what's the most important thing. But I think I can say, oh, it means X, Y, and Z, but what it actually means, if it's significant to you in a certain different way, that's the most important thing. Because creating is not for the person to say, well, it's this, and if you don't feel this, then you're not really appreciating and understanding the art correctly. I take it from the completely opposite. I'm like, this is out here for you to make up your mind about it. I know what I know. I know what I was trying to say, but however you feel about it is the best way.